All right, guys. So let's have a quick conversation about the quote unquote tariff war going on right now because there's some things that go into the wider concept here, a little bit of nuance that needs to be added. To start off, I'm not saying that I am pro tariff, 85% all the countries go. That's not what this is going to be about. That's not where I stand. But like I said, there is some nuance that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, let's start this off by talking about the libertarian view, where we want to do everything in house, within country, be completely isolationist. Now, I'm talking about the libertarians. I like the very very strict line libertarian mentality. Now, that's definitely one way that you can go about this. But when it comes to these tariffs, again, I am not 100% in favor, 85% against the entire world and go. But they have proven, and it has shown through just recent example, that they can be a very strong leveraging tool. Now, why do we have the ability to do this and most of these other countries cannot implement this strategy as effectively as we can? Well, guys, we're the number one consumer in the world. That is something that needs to be stated, and you can't underplay that. And that is where I'm going to bring this up, where this actually goes against that mainstream libertarian view and where this actually does really benefit us. When you are the largest consumer in the entire world, there is not a single country that doesn't want access to our market. You can dictate things that other countries cannot just because you simply spend more money than the rest of them, a lot of them combined. So let's look at this Canadian situation. That's one of the easiest examples. So I don't know if you're aware, because mainstream media isn't telling you about this. They're just like, oh no, Canada's gonna eat the US's lunch. It's like, are you kidding me? All right, so exports to Canada from the US make up about 1% of the US GDP. Now let's flip this around and look at the other side. Exports from Canada into the US make up 20% plus, depending on when you get into the real fine, gritty numbers. You can make an argument for 25 to 30% of the Canadian GDP. So this isn't an apples to oranges comparison. These are not two countries that are equal getting into a trade dispute. This is okay. You either do what the US is telling you, or we're going to get our start a trade from with a different country and get it elsewhere, as opposed to Canada that does not have the same purchasing power that the US does, and your country is going to fall into economic recession. I mean, depending on how hard that were to go, potentially a depression immediately. That this is not a fair. They're not equal trading partners. We're just not. That is the fact of the situation. So when the US says we're going to put reciprocal tariffs on you because you haven't been trading equally with us over this entire time, well, you can moan and groan and complain about tariffs themselves and how this isn't free trade, even though it hasn't been fair trade for decades. But again, it's not equal. There's nothing that Canada can possibly do to win that trade war. Period. The only country right now capable of even making an argument against us is China, and that's because we're the number one consumer and they are the number one exporter. I mean, Canada doesn't even come into this situation. Look at this through the standpoint of large companies. So, a large company that I work for, they sell a product to one of the largest producers of this specific product in the entire world. Now, I'm being very vague about this for a reason. I don't want to get into these specific companies, so just kind of bear with me here. Try to follow along best you can. So this consumer from this company that I work for, they purchase between 30 to 50% of all of the product that is produced. Well, because of the amount of purchasing power that purchasee company consumes, they are able to dictate a large level of the product that we're producing. Well, I mean, when you have a consumer that large, they get to dictate a lot of the rules. This is the same scenario, because if purchasing company decides, hey, you're not doing what we want, what we expect, then we're going to cripple your business. Well, like I said, guys, it's the same exact thing. This is just another case of the media coming out trying to fearmonger against you, saying, oh, well, your prices are going to go up. Our prices have been going up for the last 4 years. Except in this situation, there's actually a light at the end of the tunnel. Because, again, we just showed that this is not an equal trade partnership. Canada came out immediately after and said, well, we're going to put 25% on the energy that we're giving to several of your states up in the north part of the country, particularly the Northeast. So Trump called him on it and said, okay, well, it was going to be 25%. Now it's 50%. I guess you better play ball. And guess what? Within a couple days, Canada backed off. It is not possible for another country to compete with us in a head-to-head trade war. Now, multi-country, okay, then maybe you can make an argument for it. But that was the same reason why Mexico talked all big and then backed down almost immediately. We hold the cards. We hold the power. Don't sit here and listen to this media narrative and these Democrats come out and tell you how terrible this is going to be. Because all Trump is doing, and again, this is being overlooked, he's coming out and he's using these as a tool to try to negotiate better agreements. He did this in his first term also. I know that was at this point 4 to 8 years ago, and the attention span in politics is about 5 minutes long. This isn't something new. Trump's ratcheted it up a little bit. He's playing harder ball than he was the first time, but this isn't something that you need to worry about. This is not something that is going to cripple us. There's been several countries, just because of the tariff talks alone, that have already announced massive investments of hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S. Honda's coming back. Apple just announced a huge investment. There's another one there that I'm really forgetting about, but Honda and Apple were some of the really big ones. Honda with the Civic coming back. I want to say that it was something with AI. Don't quote me on that. But regardless, you're already starting to see things set up for long-term prosperity at just the word of the U.S. saying, we might do this. And then, Trump bluffing a little bit. Now, I guess I shouldn't really call it a bluff, because Trump will follow through on these if people decide not to play ball. But don't sit here with the doom and gloom and listen, oh my gosh, 50% tariffs are going to be terrible for us, because that's not how this is going to play out. Everyone in the world wants to be a part of the U.S. market. There's not a country that doesn't, especially when the world is trading in U.S. dollars. So just be a little bit passive when these talking heads are coming out and telling you that you need to fear for the end of the world, because that's not what's going to happen. That's not what's playing out. Just sit back. Like I said, unfortunately, there may be some short-term consequences, but just look at the big picture. Look at the nuance to this. It's not going to cripple us. We're going to get through it to the other side. And if I had to bet money, we are going to be significantly better on the other side of this than we are currently. So stay the course, guys. Try to stay optimistic. Like I said, no doom and gloom, especially not here when I'm talking to you. It's all going to be all right. Take care, guys.